Occupational warfare is saying there's economic disparity, economic exploitation, the wealth gap, the health gap, the income gap is unbearably wide and induced by government policy. Too much concentrated wealth based upon government protection, too much poverty based upon government neglect. And when the banks, which should have been overseen, were not overseen, removed the Glass-Steagall Act, so banks had the right to lend and invest on the same roof. They chose risky investing over lending, and they got over-barreled. The circumvented Community Reinvestment Act, they exploited with teaser rates and subprime lending schemes. But then the government bailed out the banks, the zero-interest money, without link to lending or reinvestment. So you have bigger, stronger, protected banks, and you have more people whose home foreclosure have driven them into poverty. They've lost their basic resources. And
of course,
so,
the banks would say that the government forced them to make bad loans, and that's what got us into trouble.
they are lying. They're not telling the truth. They sought to circumvent the Community Reinvestment Act. They were redlining. They were redlining based upon race. And that became illegal. They had to stop the redlining, and they developed the teaser rate plan. They developed the schemes of low down payment and the kickback on the back end. The bank developed the predatory lending schemes, the subprime lending schemes. Then they made money off of the origination. They made money off of the fees. They made money off of private mortgage investment, insurance. They made money off of foreclosures. They made money off of bailout. They never stopped making money at the expense of the people. So and now the exorbitant fees. Now, a couple of things have happened in the last 2 weeks. One is that because people are aware of exploitative behavior, they stepped away from the debit card fee last week. That was a reaction to the occupation movement. President Barack determined to use executive orders to begin to try to restructure student loans and home foreclosures where you negotiate the principal, not just the fees, and veterans' jobs. All these actions are reactions to people becoming aware of a level of unacceptable and painful greed.
What are you trying to do here this afternoon?
Put focus on the banks and on bank policy.
You trying to see someone here, or just?
I want to see the president, Reverend Durley, Reverend these are the ministers are going to escalate the protests as we support occupation in Atlanta, but occupation in Chicago. This struggle is about Wall Street. It's about LaSalle Street. It's about San Francisco. They would have you think it's about mayors. No, this is about bankers. It's not about just the right to live in a public park. It's about the right to live in your own neighborhood and not have your house taken from you, and not having your church taken from you. Student loan debt forgiveness is reasonable because right now banks, they've used schemes to obstruct education. Many youth with able minds need not apply to school. They can't afford to get in. Others who are in school cannot afford to stay. Others who graduate have a guaranteed debt without a guaranteed job. They go back home because they cannot buy a house. So banks in the exploitation, they're obstructing education, limiting therefore our future. That stranglehold must break. We need to have now bank hearings and insurance hearings. We've got a public a health care plan laid out by the president. By fighting to resist the public option, they've reinforced their monopolies, making insurance more difficult to get. But they're going beyond that. Insurance fees are rising while the uninsured is rising. So this is the place where the challenge must take place.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Take it, Rush. Take it easy, Dad.
See you early.
Okay, good. 6 o'clock. 6 a.m. to pick up Jeremiah for the revival. We start at 7. They calling me now. Joe, I'm seeing you. Okay, Cal.
Take care, Joe.
We're gonna stay back. Here's Jeremiah, my read.
Let me get this picture real quick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Journey?
Yo, man. You put it out there.
When we see it,
When we see it on the camera, Jerry Black was also meeting 10 days to do. So you
Let me know, because I'll come with you. Let me know.
Okay.
I'll be kind of, as a matter of fact, Monday.
I'll be right with you.
That's a good time for me.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, and I once was lost, but now
Say it.
I was blind, but now I just toils and snares I have already come. Oh, 'twas grace that me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Will lead me. To sing God's praise, that when we first began,
Keep on singing, guys.
oh, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise
At the Suntrust Plaza on Peachtree Street. Yeah, you're kneeling in the back. About 50 ministers. They have people can have access to
praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God.
continue.
Praise God, praise Praise God. Praise God. Praise
And power in singing. Got the right agenda.
This one here. Me editing, get it right for me. Just send it, you can edit. Okay. You just got tweeted.
Okay, good. Stop.
126.
That's what that's about, right?
Yeah.
Well, the church foreclosure stop.
Yeah.
Start lending to small businesses. Stop employment discrimination.
Amen.
Rebuild our communities. Make people whole again. Stop charging excessive fees. Abandon the people. And concern yourself again with the plight of the poor. We will defend the poor and deliver the needy.
126.
Dr. King's last mission was the Poor People's Campaign, preparing to go to jail, to fight for jobs and justice and health care. So we keep up Dr. King's tradition. Dr. King, the more than stone, cannot challenge us. The flesh and blood of Dr. King did challenge us to act and to move and resist exploitation. We honor that tradition today. We're only going to expand and get more people, more ministers, more churches, more prime members, more home buyers, more students. We will not stop. They change the laws of economic exploitation. We will not stop.
126.
We will not stop until justice comes.
Free the people.
Keep on, guys. Keep on singing.